When Ajin arrives at the rooftop, he expects a simple confrontation. Instead, he finds his closest friend brutally beaten by the school delinquents. They mercilessly strike his friend again, showing absolutely zero remorse. Ajin's blood boils. "How can you even call yourselves human?" he mutters. He steps out of the shadows, his eyes burning with intense fury. Unfazed, the gang of bullies brandish their bats and charge up the stairs. "Get him!" their leader yells, convinced their numbers give them the absolute advantage. But Ajin doesn't wait. He leaps boldly straight off the high ledge. The leader stops in his tracks, completely paralyzed by sudden, overwhelming fear. Before he can react, Ajin lands a devastating knee strike right to his face. The remaining thugs freeze in total shock, unable to comprehend his blinding speed. Desperate, another delinquent swings a solid baseball bat right at his head. But Ajin easily reads the attack, sidestepping the strike with perfect precision. When the next bat comes crashing down, he simply blocks it with his forearms. The attacker's jaw drops, instantly realizing he picked a fight with a monster. The solid wooden weapon completely shatters into useless splinters upon impact. Terrified and crying, the final goon drops to his knees, begging for mercy. "Get out of my sight before I end you," Ajin warns with piercing eyes. The cowardly bullies quickly scramble away, dragging their unconscious friends off the roof. Ajin watches them retreat, knowing this is only the beginning of his true revenge. At the tender age of 17, Lee Ari had captured the hearts of thousands. With her incredible talent, she quickly became a massive sensation in the K-pop industry. Her beautiful face was everywhere, and her rising fame seemed completely unstoppable. But her meteoric rise attracted ruthless enemies. Suddenly, fake bullying allegations hit the news. Cyber wreckers manufactured a vicious scandal, spreading malicious rumors across every social media platform. "Ajin, what do I do?" she sobbed, completely devastated as her agency abandoned her. Their once happy home turned into a nightmare. Her mother desperately tried to comfort her, but the sheer weight of the endless, cruel accusations was too much to bear. Severe paranoia consumed Ari. She stayed locked in the dark, obsessed with the hate. The crushing stress broke their peaceful family, resulting in terrifying outbursts of pure despair. Ajin fiercely shielded his mother, but the horrific harassment followed him to school. The bullies relentlessly taunted him, whispering vile jokes about his sister's suffering. They took sick delight in his torment, pushing the boy closer to the edge. Trembling with silent, overwhelming rage, Ajin finally reached his absolute breaking point. He shot up from his desk and violently grabbed his tormentor's collar. "I told you to shut up!" Ajin screamed, losing all his self-control. But the cruel bully just smirked back, completely mocking his desperate anger. Meanwhile, trapped in her dark room, Ari couldn't escape her digital nightmare. She anxiously scrolled through the hate, biting her nails in pure panic. The cyber wreckers had just published another completely fabricated, highly damaging scandal. Tears poured down Ari's face as the overwhelming cruelty finally shattered her. Unable to bear it any longer, she stepped out onto the high balcony. She looked down at the street below, entirely consumed by absolute hopelessness. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the chilling wind violently whipping through her hair. Outside their apartment building, a massive crowd of eager streamers had already gathered. Ajin sprinted toward his home, absolutely terrified by what the gathering crowd meant. "Move! Get out of the way!" he screamed, desperately shoving through the sea of cameras. A streamer forcefully shoved his phone into Ajin's face. "Are you her brother?" he mocked. Enraged, Ajin violently smashed the streamer's phone away, screaming for them to leave. But right as he fought through the crowd, a horrific blur fell from the sky. And the sickening impact echoed through the crowd, a horrific tragedy captured live for entertainment. Some streamer actually yelled, "Did you guys just get that on camera?" Ajin stared at her memorial portrait, utterly hollow. The public thought she deserved this fate. His mother was hospitalized with a stroke, leaving Ajin completely alone to mourn his sister. He carried her portrait out of the funeral hall, a deep, festering wound in his heart. Ajin disgusted himself, knowing he completely failed to protect the sister he loved so much. 2 miserable weeks passed. Ajin finally returned to the loud, gossiping halls of his school. His classmates didn't even care he was there, openly sharing the viral videos of Ari's fall. "Look at this crazy footage, dude," one student whispered, completely lacking any human empathy. Jin sat silently at his desk, absolutely dead inside, letting the horrible whispers surround him. Jin remained motionless at his desk, a hollow shell of his former self. His classmates continued their vile mockery, completely unfazed by his silent grief. He stood up and walked into the hallway, desperate for a moment of peace. Suddenly, the same group of bullies blocked his path, sneering at his weakness. Ajin simply turned away, wanting nothing more than to leave this nightmare behind. A cruel, triumphant smirk spread across the face of his primary tormentor. He walked toward the roof, the heavy weight of his failure crushing him. His exhausted, sunken eyes betrayed the absolute trauma he had endured. Ajin stood near the ledge, once again reliving that horrific moment of loss. Suddenly, a juice box violently slammed into his face, shattering his dark thoughts. Minjae smirked, aiming his camera to catch every second of the coming humiliation. Ajin just stood there, his eyes as hollow as his broken heart. Guy laughed, delivering a stinging slap. "Come on, at least look at me," Bean howled with laughter, finding the one-sided assault absolutely hilarious to watch. Another heavy strike landed, but Ajin didn't even try to defend himself. He was like a ghost, simply absorbing the physical pain without a word. Guy unleashed a brutal punch into his gut, desperate to see him collapse. The blows kept coming, a relentless barrage of fists against a silent target. Guy mocked his victim. "Is this really the best you can do?" Bean mimicked the strikes while Minjae ensured the viral footage was perfectly captured. Minjae focused his lens, decapturing every single painful strike hitting Ajin's face. "This is going to be viral gold," Minjae whispered, obsessed with the screen. He smirked, knowing this footage would destroy Ajin's reputation forever. The bullies stood triumphant, watching their victims suffer under the vast sky. Minjae decided they had enough, but Guy was still having too much fun. Guy loomed over the broken boy, enjoying his absolute power over him. He unleashed a final, flashy kick, sending Ajin tumbling across the roof. Ajin collapsed onto the ground, his body finally failing under the brutal assault. He lay there trembling, a broken boy drowning in his own agonizing misery. Guy and Bean shared a laugh, celebrating their victory over the defenseless Ajin. Minjae sent the video to his boss, already counting the easy cash. Guy couldn't stop laughing. Look at him. He's just a broken toy now." They were thrilled, thinking their viral stunt was going to hit big. Ajin lay there in silence, his face a canvas of cold resignation. "Wait, the boss won't pay for boring stuff," Minjae muttered, checking stats. Guy grinned wickedly. "Then we'll just have to make it even more exciting." Suddenly, a mysterious girl named Shiori walked past, commanding everyone's immediate attention. Minjae and Guy froze, wondering who this stunning new girl even was. "Bean, find out everything about her," Guy barked as she ascended stairs. Minjae smirked at his phone. "Okay, let's see what we can find." Ajin lay broken on the roof, his spirit completely crushed by the relentless assault. Suddenly, Shiori loomed over him, looking down with pure, unadulterated disappointment. "Are you just going to lie there?" she yelled, her eyes blazing with fury. Meanwhile, Minjae bragged on the phone about the easy money he was about to make, but his smug grin quickly faded as his boss demanded a much more violent video. Panicked, Minjae retreated to a corner, desperately trying to negotiate his payout. Suddenly, a hand clamped around his neck. It was Shiori staring coldly at his phone. "How much for the info, kid?" she whispered, sending a chill through Minjae's body. Back on the roof, Shiori's harsh words finally started to pierce through Ajin's trauma. "Wake up, Ajin! Don't let the monsters who ruined your sister win." Shiori let out a heavy sigh, her patience with the world finally running thin. Despite the blood, a wicked grin spread across Minjae's face as he mocked him. Shiori stood over Ajin, challenging him to find a reason to keep fighting back. "Why me?" he screamed, his voice cracking under the weight of his endless grief. The rooftop became a stage for two souls bound together by the same tragedy. Ajin spat out the metallic taste of blood, his eyes regaining a flicker of light. Without another word, Shiori turned her back, leaving the choice entirely up to him. She looked at a photo of a younger Ajin, a boy long since gone. Ajin lunged forward, finally striking back against the tormentors who ruined his family. He roared at the heartless crowd, desperate to reclaim his life from their cameras. Shiori checked her phone, already planning her next move against the school's bullies. She watched from above as Min-jae walked away, completely unaware he was being hunted. "Hey there, ready to talk?" Shiori whispered, sneaking up with a terrifying smile. Min-jae snapped in annoyance, but Shiori just laughed, waving his stolen phone around. "Looking for this?" she teased, enjoying the look of pure confusion on his face. She dropped the act, her voice turning sharp as she demanded the truth immediately. Then, she pivoted back to a playful tone, weaponizing her charm to negotiate. Min-jae hesitated, lighting a cigarette while trying to process this girl's sudden intrusion. "Do we have a deal?" she asked, her confidence making Min-jae break a sweat. Min-jae reached out, but Shiori's sharp eyes warned him not to cross the line. Min-jae thought he was untouchable, flashing that sickening, arrogant grin one last time. But Shiori quickly wiped it off his face with a crushing, well-deserved blow. "Thanks for the cooperation, loser," she teased, winking over his broken, pathetic body. Meanwhile, back in class, Guy and Bean were getting restless, waiting for news. Guy stretched lazily, completely bored with the slow pace of the school day. "He's just heading to the bathroom, Teach," Bean shouted, covering for Guy's sudden exit. Guy headed down the stairs, already planning his next round of cruel entertainment. He loomed over Shiori with a sinister smile, thinking he finally caught her. But Shiori's crimson eyes sharpened, instantly sensing the dangerous threat standing right behind her. Before she could react, Guy lunged forward, roughly grabbing her by the shoulder. Guy fumed with rage, and seeing Min-jae peeking through the door looking like a total mess, Min-jae screamed in absolute agony, clutching his head as the world spun out of control. Guy simply smirked, showing zero sympathy for his partner's pathetic and broken state. He charged forward like a wild predator, completely ignoring the desperate fear in Min-jae's eyes. Shiori calmly turned to leave, her hair flowing as she walked down the long hallway. Guy reached out, but Shiori slipped away like a ghost, mocking his slow speed. She pivoted with blinding precision, turning the tables on the arrogant bully in a heartbeat. "You're pathetic," Shiori laughed, watching Guy struggle to stand while Min-jae watched from behind. Guy gritted his teeth in humiliation, his face twisted by the realization of his defeat. With a final, triumphant smirk, Shiori walked away, leaving the defeated duo in the dust. Shiori sprinted toward the window, her long hair trailing behind as she made her move. With a bold leap, she escaped the building, leaving Min-jae grasping at thin air. "Where did she go?" Min-jae screamed, his eyes wide with pure, frantic desperation. The bullies scrambled to follow, but they were already steps behind their agile target. Shiori hit the ground running, leading Guy and Min-jae on a high-speed chase. Suddenly, a heavy engine roared, casting a massive shadow over the stunned delinquents. Guy and Min-jae let out a terrified howl as they faced a mechanical beast. The sheer power of the bike sent them flying backward into the hard pavement. Tires screeched violently against the bricks, creating a thick cloud of burning rubber. Shiori mounted her Hayabusa, eye flashing a playful wink before disappearing into the city. Min-jae wiped his face, sweating as he realized Shiori was far more dangerous than she looked. Ajin walked through the corridor with a heavy heart, his body aching from the earlier assault. He passed a teacher in total silence, a hollow shell of the boy he once was. Students leaned against the lockers, their eyes filled with judgment as Ajin walked by. "Is that Ari's brother?" a student whispered, staring with cold curiosity and zero pity. Ajin closed his eyes, the memory of his sister's tragic end flashing vividly behind his lids. He stared into the distance, his gaze vacant and filled with a deep, lingering sorrow. From below, Shiori looked up at the school building, her eyes locked on the rooftop. Shiori waved a cheerful goodbye from her bike, leaving Ajin with a mysterious new hope. Min-jae and his crew reunited at their usual smoking spot to plan their next move. Guy and Min-jae regrouped at their usual spot to discuss their next move. $50? You're kidding me, Min-jae muttered, exhaling a cloud of smoke. He was still reeling from Seori's punch, his face a map of bruises. Despite the pain, Min-jae knew his information was worth a literal fortune. Guy counted the small stack of bills, looking entirely unimpressed with the payout. I want 20 times this much if you want me to catch her, Min-jae smirked, sliding the bills away. I'll make you a very rich man. But the thought of the massive payout made Min-jae's heart race with greed. He flicked his cigarette away, the glowing embers signaling the end of talk. Guy roared in excitement, finally ready to crush anyone standing in his way. Min-jae and Bean laughed, watching Seori walk away like she owned the place. Min-jae pulled Guy close, whispering, "She's the key to our biggest payout yet." "Move it, pig!" Min-jae barked at Bean, eager to track her every move. His eyes burned with a sickening greed. This was going to be far too easy. Meanwhile, Ajin walked home alone, the fading light matching his hollow spirit. The school hallways felt like a cage filled with cruel, whispering voices. "Stop recording!" he had screamed, but their cameras only hungered for more. The scars on his face were nothing compared to the pain in his heart. Seori waved a playful goodbye, a bright spark in Ajin's dark, lonely world. Ajin stared into the void, completely haunted by the ghosts of his past. Bean secretly recorded Ajin as they finally left the school grounds. He checked his screen, double-checking Seori's location for Min-jae's plan. Ajin ignored the chatter, still mourning the tragic loss of Ari. He was forced to see Seori's face on the glowing screen. Bean smirked, eager to earn a massive cash bonus from Junggu. He scuttled alongside Ajin, pretending to be a loyal, supportive friend. "We're almost there, buddy," Bean laughed, hiding his wicked intentions. They walked away from the light toward a quiet, industrial district. They reached a secluded, grimy alleyway where a storm was brewing. Bean checked his phone, his eyes widening at the latest updates on the screen. "Hey, have a smoke," Bean offered, trying to act like a friend to the broken Ajin. Ajin just ignored him and kept walking, leaving Bean fuming in the silent alleyway. "Don't walk away when I'm talking to you," Bean yelled, his fake kindness vanishing instantly. He balled his hand into a tight fist, the tension in the air finally snapping. Bean roughly grabbed Ajin's shoulder, but the boy looked back with a chilling, cold stare. Disgusted by the lack of reaction, Bean spat his cigarette right at Ajin's face. A heavy blow landed squarely on Ajin's cheek, knocking his head to the side. Bean didn't stop there, winding up another punch to teach the silent boy a lesson. He roared in frustration, unable to understand why Ajin still wouldn't fight back. Seori smirked. Don't worry, Ajin. I'll show you how we deal with these losers." With blinding speed, she launched a crushing fist directly into Bean's arrogant face. The bully crumpled instantly, blood gushing from his nose as he hit the pavement. Ajin touched his wounds, stunned by the sheer power of his new ally. "See? It's easy once you stop being afraid," Seori said with a wink. She tried to light the mood, but Ajin's heart was still heavy with grief. He looked down, his eyes slowly hardening with a newfound cold sense of resolve. Suddenly, a hidden delinquent lunged from behind, swinging a heavy bat at Seori. But the strike met a solid block, shattering the wooden weapon into useless splinters. The broken wood fell to the floor. These bullies had no idea what was coming. The school hallways were filled with heartless students who turned a blind eye. Min-jae leaned in close, whispers of a sinister plan filling Guy's ears. Guy's expression shifted, his hunger for power and money growing by the second. They didn't even spare Bean, dragging their own bruised accomplice along like trash. Junggu stood at the center, the mastermind enjoying every bit of the chaos. Ajin stood his ground, the weight of the tragedy finally forging his resolve. He looked away, but the fire for vengeance was now burning uncontrollably inside. Suddenly he saw Seori lying motionless, her strength finally failing in the shadows. Something snapped within Ajin. The boy who was once broken was officially gone. Junggu laughed at him, entirely unaware that he was staring at his own doom. Junggu's lips curled into a sickening, inconfident smirk that made Ajin's skin crawl. To make matters worse, Junggu planted his heavy foot right on top of Seori. "Poor little sister, poor mother," Junggu taunted, pulling Ajin close to see the tragedy. Ajin's face was a mask of cold fury, every nerve ending screaming for revenge. What are you going to do, kid? Cry? Junggu chuckled with pure malice. Suddenly, Ajin lunged forward, throwing everything he had into one desperate, explosive strike. But Junggu barely flinched, standing like an immovable wall against the boy's attempt. Ajin slumped over, his lungs burning as he realized the terrifying gap in power. Junggu leaned down, his eyes widening with the sick thrill of the hunt. However, a primal light flickered in Ajin's eyes. The monster within was finally waking up. Junggu unleashes a devastating assault, his power completely overwhelming Ajin's desperate attempts to retaliate. Every heavy strike lands with bone-shattering force, pushing the boy deeper into despair. Junggu stood over his victims, savoring the absolute destruction of his pathetic enemies. Man, this is brutal, Min-jae snickered, while Bean watched with a twisted smile. Junggu hoisted Ajin up by the collar, demanding he witness his own total failure. Blood dripped from Ajin's face, but his eyes were beginning to burn again. With a savage kick, Junggu sent him sliding across the grimy pavement once more. The goons gathered behind their leader, certain that their work here was finally finished. Shiori remained motionless on the ground, her strength fading as the situation turned dire. Got it all on camera, Min-jae cheered, already thinking about the viral views ahead. Junggu smirked, reminding Min-jae exactly who was calling the shots in this game. Min-jae nervously cheered, desperate to stay on his boss's good side. Is that all you've got? Junggu mocked, staring down at his broken opponent. Shiori lay helpless on the ground, the situation becoming more critical by the second. The goons hesitated, starting to realize they had stepped into a nightmare. Panic spread through the group as the tide finally began to turn. Get her up, one yelled, but fear was already paralyzing their movements. Min-jae desperately pleaded, realizing that Junggu didn't care if he lived or died. Junggu's grip tightened, showing the coward exactly how little his life mattered. The rest of the crew watched in horror, knowing they were all next. Bean cackled, thinking he finally had the upper hand over the fallen Ajin. But Junggu grabbed the coward, reminding him who the real boss was here. Shiori winced as blood stained her shirt. The situation was getting dangerously real. Junggu's face twisted into a mask of pure, unbridled rage. He lunged, grabbing Shiori roughly and mocking her futile attempts to intervene. Big mistake! Shiori delivered a bone-shattering kick right where it hurts most. Junggu's arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by a high-pitched scream of absolute agony. Tastes like iron, Shiori spat, wiping blood from her lip defiantly. She didn't stop there, sending the next goon flying with a perfect strike. The alley was silent now, littered with the broken bodies of Junggu's crew. Junggu smirks despite his bruises, finding the pain more entertaining than he ever expected. Suddenly, he reaches out and roughly grabs Shiori, trying to regain his dominant position. You think you're special? He growls, violently tightening his grip on her long hair. Shiori reacts with lightning speed, throwing a frantic elbow to break his suffocating hold. But Junggu is a total beast, refusing to let go as they struggle together. He roars in a fit of manic rage, his patience with her finally snapping. Suddenly, a heavy blow sends Junggu crashing to the ground, gasping for air. He stares up from the shadows, his eyes filled with a terrifying, dark intent. The remains of the broken wooden bat lie scattered, signaling the end of games. With a desperate cry, Junggu charges forward for one last violent attempt at victory. Shiori's crimson eyes flared with a predatory light, her patience for these monsters finally reaching zero. Suddenly, a heavy metal roar cut through the air as Ajin swung a fire extinguisher with every ounce of strength he had left. The impact was bone-shattering, instantly turning Junggu's smug expression into a mess of broken teeth and blood. The untouchable king crumpled into the dirt, defeated by the very boy he had spent years trying to destroy. The rest of the crew stood paralyzed, their faces twisted in absolute soul-chilling terror as they stared at the bloodied Ajin. He didn't say a single word, his vacant gaze holding more power than any threat they had ever uttered. With a sharp click, he gripped the handle, ready to erase their sickening faces from his memory once and for all. A violent, white torrent of chemical powder erupted, drowning the bullies in a blinding cloud of cold retribution. The alleyway vanished behind a thick wall of fog, muffling their frantic screams and hiding their pathetic retreat. Through the suffocating haze, Ajin and Shiori emerged together, two broken souls who had finally learned how to bite back. Ajin stood frozen in the fading light, his face a map of bruises and bloodied resolve. "What are you waiting for? Get in!" Shiori shouted, swinging the car door open with urgent intensity. They sped away from the grim alleyway, the golden sunset reflecting off the towering skyscrapers of the city. The black SUV tore through the streets, leaving the scene of the brawl far behind them. Inside, the silence was heavy. Ajin stared ahead while Shiori tried to regain her composure behind the wheel. She glanced at him, her face still streaked with blood from the chaos, but her eyes held a fierce protectiveness. "You're making a mess of my seats," she joked weakly. But Ajin remained lost in his own thoughts. Shiori focused back on the road, her knuckles white as she gripped the steering wheel tight. The car screeched to a halt at a red light, the vibrant city life continuing around them as if nothing had happened. Ajin let out a small, tired laugh, the first sign of life in a boy who had nearly lost everything. Shiori and Ajin hit the road, focused on their next dangerous objective. Suddenly, Shiori notices blood on her hand, a grim reminder of the stakes. In the back seat, Ajin's gaze turned sharp, fueled by an unbreakable cold resolve. Shiori wipes the stains away, her eyes burning with pure, unyielding defiance. Even as he bleeds, Ajin remains silent, preparing himself for the final confrontation. Elsewhere, Min-jae waits under the evening sky, oblivious to the coming storm. Jung-gu and Bean approach their leader, ready to report on their latest scheme. Min-jae explodes in a fit of rage, demanding results from his failing lackeys. Jung-gu stares at his screen, realizing that their time is quickly running out. Before he can react, a hand grabs the device, ending the conversation abruptly. Min-jae snaps, threatening Bean for his constant failures and lack of useful information. He remains arrogant, even as the tension between his team reaches a boiling point. Bean trembles in fear, witnessing the devastating damage Jung-gu has already taken. Jung-gu's face is a canvas of bruises, a testament to his recent brutal defeat. He can still feel the weight of the blow that shattered his pride. Despite the pain, he remains silent, contemplating his next move in the shadows. Bean watches in horror as Jung-gu spits blood, realizing their power is slipping. Min-jae's gaze turns icy, questioning the loyalty of those still standing beside him. In a sudden flash of movement, their only leverage is swiped away instantly. The trio stands alone, unaware that their world is about to come crashing down. Min-jae erupts in a chilling, manic laugh as his grand plans fall into place. Behind him, Bean trembles as the battered Jung-gu looms like a silent shadow. "I can't do this anymore," Bean stammers, his fear reaching a breaking point. Min-jae ignores him, smirking as he places a call to seal Ajin's fate. Meanwhile, Shiori pushes the engine to its limit while Ajin struggles to stay awake. "Are you still with me?" she asks, her voice wavering with hidden anxiety. She catches her own reflection, steeling her resolve for the final, desperate showdown. The road ahead is long, and time is the one enemy they cannot defeat. She grits her teeth, pushing through the exhaustion to save what remains of them. Ajin murmurs a name, leaving Shiori paralyzed by a revelation she never expected. The tension in the car is heavy as the sun begins to set. Ajin clenches his teeth, and the weight of the coming battle finally sinking in. Shiori keeps her eyes on the road, knowing there is no turning back. They speed toward their destination, leaving the safety of the city far behind. Everything depends on this moment. Shiori won't let another innocent life be ruined. "Are you ready, Ajin?" she asks, her voice steady despite the growing danger. "I have to be," he whispers, fighting through the exhaustion and the pain. He remembers the lies spread about Ari, the fabricated tears that started it all. Shiori looks at him, seeing the same fire that once burned in her. "We're going to make them pay for every single lie they've told." Shiori notices Ajin's exhaustion as they move closer to their dangerous goal. Suddenly, Ajin snaps awake, his eyes burning with an intense, vengeful fire. Meanwhile, Min-jae makes a desperate call, trying to maintain his crumbling control. In the shadows, the true mastermind, Geico, finally prepares to make his move. Min-jae barks orders at Jung-gu and Bean, unaware his reign is ending. Geico stares at his screen, his twisted smile signaling a new level of cruelty. The pressure mounts as Min-jae realizes he is just a pawn in this game. His confidence shatters, replaced by a cold, paralyzing fear of what comes next. Min-jae forces a wicked grin, desperate to prove he's still the one in charge. Bean and Junggu watch in silence, sensing the storm that is about to break. Bean is left trembling in fear, realizing the monsters he's been serving. Ajin and Seori arrive at a massive, secluded mansion hidden in the mountains. They step inside the safe house, a world away from their recent chaos. Seori turns back, her expression uncharacteristically calm after such a brutal night. Hurry up and close the door, the mountain mosquitoes are getting in. Ajin is stunned by the grandeur of the place, questioning Seori's true identity. He looks around, trying to reconcile this luxury with their dangerous mission. A family portrait on the wall catches his eye, radiating a lost happiness. A younger Seori smiles alongside her parents, before tragedy destroyed their lives. The silence grows heavy as Ajin realizes the depth of their shared pain. Ajin felt a deep guilt, wondering if his revenge was worth all this collateral damage. Seori lay motionless, the weight of her own tragic past finally catching up to her. Suddenly, she sat up with a smirk, her playful energy hiding the scars underneath. "Don't play games with me," Ajin warned, on his cold glare cutting through her facade. She just laughed, draping an arm over him like they were old, carefree friends. "You're far too serious, kid. Let's have a little fun before the world ends." Frustrated, Ajin lunged at her, his nightmare-fueled rage taking control of his every move. "Get off me!" she shouted as they struggled right beneath the memory of her parents. He didn't listen, his grip tightening as the trauma of his sister's death boiled over. With one sharp shove, he sent her crashing back, the room echoing with heavy silence. Ajin screams in fury, unable to handle the crushing silence of this hidden mansion. Seori stares him down, her eyes revealing a pain that matches his own intensity. She lets out a soft, bitter laugh, realizing how alike they truly are now. "That happy family is gone," she says, then looking back at her parents' portrait. Ajin stands frozen, finally seeing the hollow life Seori was forced to lead. The strength leaves her body as she slumps down, exhausted from the endless fight. She reaches out, touching his shoulder. "You aren't the only one who lost everything." The night deepens over the mountain, a brief moment of peace before the war. Under the steam, Ajin tries to wash away the phantom touch of his enemies. His eyes narrow with a dark promise. The hunt begins at dawn, no matter what. The blood on the shower floor is a grim reminder of the mission ahead. Seori's parents once led a successful life, heading the famous company, Legend Food. Back then, even young Ajin was a massive fan of their popular fried dumplings. His mother always worked hard to provide for them, despite her growing exhaustion. Yeari never shared his love for the overly processed and unhealthy instant snacks. These family dinners were filled with simple joy before the world turned against them. Ajin would insist on dumplings, but Ari saw right through his childish obsession. They bickered like siblings, unaware that a massive media scandal was currently brewing. Suddenly, a national newsflash exposed the company's use of expired ingredients. This fabrication led to total tragedy, leaving Ari gone and their mother hospitalized. Ajin stands alone, letting the water wash away the blood and the lingering regrets. Seori takes a cold drink, trying to numb the memory of her family's downfall. She watches him from across the room, her playful eyes hiding a deep sorrow. He takes a bite of the dumplings, the flavor sparking a painful childhood memory. Those bunny pajamas look great on you," Seori teases, breaking the heavy tension. For a brief moment, the crushing weight of their shared trauma seems to fade. "I'm not doing this for your amusement," Ajin snaps, though he can't help blushing. Seori smiles softly, realizing she has finally found an ally she can truly trust. He stares back, feeling a strange sense of comfort he hasn't known in years. "Teach me your moves," Ajin says, determined to finally take his revenge together. "Wait, why are you staring at me like that?" Ajin asked, feeling slightly awkward. Suddenly, she reached out, poking at his shoulder with a mischievous little smirk. "What are you doing?" He grunted as she began testing his physical form. Seori didn't stop, her playful nature acting as a shield for her pain. "You've got grit, kid. but let's see if you can handle a real hit. She raised her fist, the playful atmosphere shifting into a mock sparring match. With a quick strike, she landed a sharp blow right to his midsection. They danced around the living room, her movements fluid while he struggled to keep up. Shiori burst out laughing, enjoying a rare moment of genuine, unburdened happiness. For a second, the heavy shadows of her family's tragic legacy finally seemed to lift. Shiori's laughter echoes as she realizes Ajin is finally ready to train seriously. Back in the park, Min-jae stares at his phone, plotting his next move. How much was the payout? Min-jae demands while Bean trembles in the background. He leans in closer, his arrogance masking the fear he should be feeling. You worthless fool! Min-jae snarls, his temper finally reaching a violent breaking point. He lunges forward, aiming a reckless blow at the very man meant to protect him. In an instant, his arm is caught in a crushing, unyielding grip of iron. Junggu stares him down with cold eyes, reminding the boy who truly holds power. With a sharp slap, Junggu disarms the arrogant redhead, teaching him a painful lesson. Min-jae staggers back, clutching his hand as his world of control begins to crumble. Min-jae tries to stand his ground, but Junggu's presence is far too overwhelming to ignore. You'll pay for this, he shouts, his voice cracking under the weight of total defeat. Junggu just laughs, finding this desperate struggle more entertaining than any viral video. Min-jae clutches his head, his carefully constructed life falling apart right before his eyes. The final level of this game has begun, and the monster is clearly winning. Meanwhile, Ajin finally drifts into a restless sleep, his mind haunted by recent failures. A sudden vibration pulls him back to reality as a mysterious call interrupts his peace. His eyes snap open in pure shock. He recognizes that voice on the other end. Ajin sits up, his heart racing as he reads the message that changes everything instantly. Guy sends a mocking photo with his mother, forcing Ajin into a path of no return. Ajin stares at the screen, his heart stopping at the sight of his mother. He trembles in the dark, the weight of Guy's cruel threat crushing his soul. A cold, lethal fury awakens within him, changing everything he once believed about justice. He looks towards Shiori, knowing he can no longer wait for her slow training. Under the moonlight, the path to vengeance becomes the only road he can walk. Back at the hospital, Min-jae paces nervously while Junggu prepares for their final move. Why is he so late? Min-jae growls, his arrogance masking a growing, frantic panic. Bean remains silent, the guilt of his actions finally starting to take its toll. He watches the unconscious woman, realizing the true cost of their heartless viral content. Suddenly, a shadow looms in the doorway, signaling the arrival of a new terror. Min-jae bows frantically, begging Junggu for one last chance to fix his mistake. Junggu's anger is interrupted as a massive, imposing figure steps into the room. The air turns cold as the stranger leans in, silencing the room completely. Hello, Min-jae stutters, paralyzed by the sheer pressure of this man's presence. He looks up in terror, realizing this isn't just any ordinary high schooler. The dark figure looms over them, his silence more terrifying than any threat. Sweat pours down Min-jae's face as he struggles to even find his voice. His eyes dart around the ward, searching for an exit that doesn't exist. Junggu tries to intervene, his tattooed arm reaching out to stop the intruder. Who do you think you are? Junggu snarls, facing the man head-on. Ajin wastes no time, delivering a crushing blow that rattles Junggu to his core. Junggu smiles through the pain, his twisted eyes showing he's loving every second. You think that's enough? Junggu snarls, his face a mess of bandages and fury. Another heavy strike lands squarely, sending the enforcer reeling from the physical force. The enforcer finally slumps, realizing he is no longer the predator in this room. Min-jae and Bean watch in total shock as their invincible shield begins to fail. Where is he? Ajin roars, his voice filled with the pain of Ari's death. He charges toward the remaining cowards, leaving no room for them to escape today. Tell me everything, Ajin screams, his cold gaze pinning them against the wall. The room falls silent as the bullies realize their era of terror is over. Junggu's sinister smile fades as the stranger's presence suffocates the entire hospital room. Wait a second. Yet the dark figure mutters, pulling out a phone to show Ajin. Ajin stares at the glowing screen, his face draining of color as he watches. A single detail on the screen sends a lightning bolt of shock through him. Junggu cowers on the floor, clutching his broken face, his confidence completely shattered now. Min-jae can only watch in silence, realizing his life of cruelty is finally over. Ajin clenches his jaw, the weight of the truth pushing him beyond his limit. The hierarchy of the school has officially been overturned by this mysterious, dark enforcer. Sweat drips down his face as Ajin prepares for the final, intense confrontation today. One final piece of evidence is captured, sealing the fate of everyone in this room. The stranger smiles at Ajin, mocking the weakness of everyone else in the room. Junggu erupts in a desperate roar, unwilling to accept his complete and total defeat. "Do you see it now?" the stranger whispers, his gaze drilling into Ajin's soul. Ajin stands his ground, his eyes fixed on the mother he swore to protect. Junggu lunges forward one last time, screaming in a futile attempt to regain control. He is effortlessly stopped, forced to acknowledge that his time as a king is over. The stranger's grip is cold and unyielding, cutting off Junggu's remaining hope for escape. A heavy, final impact silences the room, leaving nothing but the sound of breathing. Ajin watches as his former bully is manhandled and discarded like an old toy. Junggu lies broken on the floor, his legacy of viral terror ending in silence. The stranger lands a devastating strike, sending Junggu's head snapping to the side. Min-jae freezes in absolute horror as blood splatters across the clinical white room. Another crushing blow forces Junggu to his knees, his physical dominance completely erased. Junggu trembles on the floor, his face bruised, and his confidence entirely shattered now. The stranger reaches down, his hand looming like a predator finishing off its prey. A cold, twisted smile spreads across the stranger's face as he enjoys the carnage. He stares at Ajin, mocking the weakness of the bullies who once felt untouchable. Ajin clenches his fist tight, realizing the tide has finally turned in his favor. Junggu erupts in a desperate final scream, trying to reclaim his lost pride today. He swings a frantic, wide punch, but he's already lost this intense mental battle. The stranger leans in, his whisper cold enough to freeze the air around them. Junggu loses his mind, screaming as he realizes his physical strength means nothing now. "Do you really think you can stop me?" the stranger asks with a smirk. Ajin stands firm, his resolve hardened by the sight of his mother's suffering bed. Junggu lunges again, a frantic animal backed into a corner with nowhere left to run. He is met with a wall of pure power, the stranger barely moving an inch. A crushing hand seizes Junggu's neck, cutting off his desperate cries for help instantly. The final impact shatters what's left of the bully's pride in a single explosion. Ajin watches as his former tormentor is effortlessly tossed aside like a broken doll. The stranger reaches out, signaling that the real mission is only just beginning now. The enforcer's sinister smile glows against the red, marking the beginning of the end. Min-jae celebrates his dirty winnings, unaware that his viral empire is built on glass. He counts the cash with a smug grin, valuing money over every human life. In an instant, the clinical ward becomes a scene of Junggu's total physical defeat. The dark figure cracks his shoulders, moving with the terrifying grace of a predator. Ajin's expression is hard and cold, his resolve finally matching the monster before him. Bean is frozen in pure terror, watching his world of power crumble into dust. The stranger looks back, his eyes mocking the weaklings who dare to stand firm. A twisted, knowing smirk crosses his face as he prepares for the final blow. "This is for Eri," Ajin screams, throwing a heavy strike to finish the fight. Ajin lunges with everything he has, desperate to strike the man standing before him. The blow lands, but the mysterious enforcer doesn't even blink at the impact. "Is that all?" he mockingly asks, pinching Ajin's cheek like he's a child. Ajin freezes as he realizes the sheer gap in power between them is astronomical. The stranger's touch is cold, a silent promise of the consequences of reckless fury. He leans in, his whisper cutting through Ajin's fear like a jagged, icy blade. Overwhelmed by the pressure, Ajin collapses to the floor, his strength completely failing him. The room falls silent as the stranger prepares to depart, leaving chaos in his wake. Min-jae frantically retreats, dragging his defeated allies away before the situation escalates further. "Stay out of my way," the stranger mutters, his voice echoing with finality. Ajin collapses, his body trembling as the weight of the threat finally sinks in. The monster merely smirks, satisfied with the terror he left behind in that room. Alone in the clinical silence, Ajin struggles to find a way to protect her. A sudden tap on his shoulder pulls him back from the brink of despair. He lashes out in panic, his instincts raw and fueled by pure defensive adrenaline. It was just Bean, broken and weeping, as he begged for a chance to apologize. "Get lost!" Ajin roars, his patience for these bullies having long since expired completely. Bean wails in agony, the guilt of his past actions finally tearing him apart. He falls to his knees, pounding the floor while admitting to his terrible mistakes. He remembered a time when he was just a fan before greed changed everything. Min-jae snaps, "I'm punishing Bean for failing to capture the perfect, scandalous viral moment." "Wait, I got it," Bean exclaims, showing a photo that could change everything. They target Ari, an innocent student whose life is about to be dismantled. Min-jae sneers, realizing this single image is his ticket to massive viral fame. The duo plots in the back of the class, completely ignoring the lecture. Bean feels a pang of guilt, but the allure of money is stronger. Min-jae's obsession grows darker, his eyes narrowing with a cold and ruthless ambition. Suddenly, he spots something unexpected that nearly shatters his carefully laid plans. "Shut up!" he roars, physically silencing Bean to maintain his fragile, failing authority. He prepares to upload, uncaring of the absolute destruction he is about to cause. Min-jae lashes out, who's striking Bean for questioning the morality of their viral schemes. A sudden notification from Inbul pings, signaling a new, high-stakes reporting mission, has arrived. Min-jae's eyes light up with greed, ignoring Bean's obvious discomfort and silent pleading. He realizes this mysterious client isn't playing games, demanding a near-instant response. "Decide in 60 seconds, the message reads, forcing Min-jae to make his choice. Sweat pours down Min-jae's face as the pressure of the clock begins to take hold. A massive deposit of 3 million won hits his account, sealing his dark commitment. Min-jae stares in disbelief, his moral compass completely spinning out of control now. "See? Triple rate," the client mocks, laying out the rules for the job. Min-jae doubles over, already consumed by the dark path he has chosen to walk. Min-jae stared at the countdown, his heart racing as the potential payout increased. "Yes!" he shouted, the thrill of the hunt finally giving him a rush. At school, the students played on, completely oblivious to the trap being set. Ari sat alone on the sidelines, unaware she was being watched so closely. "Got her," Min-jae whispered, snapping candid photos from his hidden vantage point. The peaceful campus was about to become the center of a manufactured storm. He reviewed the captures, each one another piece of his dark, profitable puzzle. Bean looked on with dread, sensing that this was going way too far. "Don't worry about it," Min-jae laughed as the client sent over even more demands. The list was cold and calculating, designed to destroy Ari's reputation for good. Min-jae loses his temper as he realizes he's trapped in a game he cannot win. Suddenly, a chilling realization hits him, and his smug arrogance turns into pure, cold terror. His composure shatters just like the drink he dropped in his moment of total panic. Bean watches the meltdown, paralyzed with fear as the situation spirals out of their control. The mystery client is watching them right now. "Why? Too hard now?" the message mocks. Min-jae frantically types back, trying to maintain some dignity while sweating through his school uniform. "Scared, LMAO," the client laughs, knowing they have these two bullies on a very short leash. Min-jae forces a smile, realizing he has no choice but to follow every dark order. "You really need these photos?" he asks, hoping for some shred of sanity from them. The client won't say it twice. Min-jae lights a cigarette, accepting his role as a demon. Min-jae brags that he's the only one who can pull off this reporting job. The client sets a strict 3-day deadline to produce a viral video. 3 days? Min-jae shouts, feeling the pressure of the impossible task. He grits his teeth, knowing he has to go even further this time. Suddenly, a notification pops up. Another 1 million won has just been deposited. "I'm rich!" Min-jae screams, his greed completely washing away any hesitation. The client promises to double the payment if the final results are perfect. Min-jae bows to his phone, ready to become a demon for the money. Bean watches in silence, realizing his friend has lost his mind to greed. As the sun sets over the school, the dark plan is set into motion. Ari was thrilled to finally be approached by a group of friendly-looking girls. They showered her with compliments, on acting like they were her biggest fans in school. Ari felt a glimmer of hope, thinking her lonely school days were finally over. Hayoung took the lead, inviting the unsuspecting idol to join them after class ended. Her bright smile hid a calculated malice that Ari was too innocent to see. The group hurried through the corridors, dragging Ari toward a secluded part of campus. "Come on, Ari, it'll be fun," they cheered, further lowering her natural defenses. Ari followed them blindly, desperate for the connection she had craved for so long. She tucked her hair behind her ear, blushing at the thought of making friends. Hayoung reached out a hand, inviting Ari to step right into their carefully constructed trap. "Don't be shy," Hayoung said, extending a hand to the lonely, unsuspecting idol. Ari hesitated, but the promise of a real friendship was too tempting to refuse. As they walked away, Bean watched from the shadows, recording every single step taken. He felt a knot in his stomach, knowing exactly where this path was heading. Min-jae smirked at the updates, seeing his dark investment finally start to pay off. Hidden away, Bean continued his surveillance, trapped between his guilt and Min-jae's cruel demands. The bright afternoon sun masked the dark intentions brewing within the quiet school walls. Hayoung stopped, slowly pulling her hair back to reveal a nasty bruise on her neck. "My dad did this," she lied, using the fake mark to win Ari's sympathy. Ari's heart broke for her new friend, falling deeper into the trap with every tear. Ari was lured behind the school, completely unaware of the trap being set. Hayoung suddenly pulled out a lighter, her friendly act turning into something sinister. She forced a cigarette into Ari's hand, pressuring her to join their group. "Is the little idol too good for us?" the delinquent sneered, circling their prey. Panic washed over Ari as she realized these girls weren't her friends at all. "Come on, just one puff," Hayoung mocked, enjoying the pure fear in Ari's eyes. Ari stood there trembling, caught between her morals and the fear of being isolated. More students arrived to witness the scene, adding even more pressure to the situation. They swarmed her, gaslighting the poor girl into thinking this was normal for friends. Hidden nearby, Min-jae recorded everything, ready to destroy her career with a single click. Min-jae watched from the shadows, capturing every moment to fuel his malicious narrative. Meanwhile, Ah-jin stood in the hospital, the weight of the truth finally hitting. Bean collapsed into a sobbing mess, completely overwhelmed by his guilt and fear. "Spill it!" Ah-jin roared, grabbing the traitor as his patience finally snapped. Just then, the door slammed open and Seori arrived to interrupt the chaos. She didn't come to talk. She came to deliver a swift, painful lesson. With a single strike from her baton, the bullies were neutralized in seconds. "Don't worry," she smirked. "I'm just getting started with these pathetic fools." Ah-jin slumped to the floor, his mind racing with everything he had discovered. Seori stood over him, wondering if the boy truly had what it takes. Ah-jin felt his world spinning, from the trauma of the past resurfacing with a vengeance. Seori snapped him out of it, her voice cutting through his panic like a blade. A single tear fell as he realized the true scale of the injustice they faced. Seori's fury reached its peak, ready to strike back against anyone in her way. Later, she waited by her G-Wagon, making a secret report on their progress. "He's finally resting," she whispered into the phone, watching Ah-jin sleep in the back. But her mind was already focused on the next phase of their dangerous plan. She cornered Bean in the parking lot, the coward nearly jumping out of his skin. "You're going to help us," she commanded, giving him no choice but to listen. She leaned in close, ensuring the terrified boy understood the gravity of his situation. "You think your silence will save you now?" Seori screamed in his face. Then Bean could only tremble, his hands raised in a useless plea for mercy. She cornered him against the car, demanding every single name in their crew. "Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused?" she sighed. The weight of his betrayals finally crushed whatever spirit he had left. She watched him coldly, waiting for the truth to spill out of him. "Tell me everything, or I'll make sure you never see them again." He finally broke, the tears flowing as he confessed his role in everything. Inside, Ajin remained in a deep slumber, unaware of the justice unfolding. Under the morning sun, Bean sat defeated while Shiori planned their next move. Ajin's mother lay unconscious in her hospital bed, clinging to a fragile life. She was completely defenseless, unaware of the monsters lurking right outside her door. Junggu suddenly barged in, his twisted smile showing he had zero respect for her. "Wake up, lady," he mocked, reaching out to terrorize the poor, helpless woman. He raised his hand to deliver a brutal strike, enjoying her silent agony. Ajin watched helplessly through the glass, his heart shattering at his own weakness. Suddenly, his sister's specter appeared in the dark hallway, haunting his every thought. "Why are you just standing there?" Her hollow eyes seemed to scream at him. He let out a blood-curdling scream as the nightmare consumed his very soul. Ajin snapped awake, gasping for air as cold sweat drenched his trembling body. Ajin bolted upright, the haunting screams of his nightmare still ringing in his ears. "Finally awake? You were tossing and turning like you'd seen a ghost," Shiori joked. She tried to keep the mood light. But Ajin's expression remained terrifyingly blank. Without warning, he lunged forward, pinning her against the wall in a desperate frenzy. Tears streamed down his face as the line between dream and reality completely blurred. Shiori didn't pull away, seeing the raw, unhealed trauma hiding behind his eyes. "Was my mom okay? Tell me he didn't touch her," Ajin screamed in agony. She realized then that his brave facade had finally reached its absolute breaking point. He clung to her like a drowning man, begging for any sign of safety. Shiori looked at him with newfound resolve, promising to be the shield he needed. Ajin's panic faded, replaced by an incredibly awkward and heavy silence. Shiori noticed his discomfort and decided it was the perfect time to tease him. She broke into a fit of laughter, seeing the tough fighter turn bright red. Ajin looked away, his heart racing faster than it ever had in a fight. But Shiori wasn't done yet, her gaze locking onto him with playful intensity. She leaned in, capitalizing on the moment to test his legendary patience. A mischievous grin spread across her face as she enjoyed the sheer awkwardness. She got closer, her warm breath tickling his ear as she whispered softly. It was more than the poor guy could handle, sending his nerves into overdrive. He finally pushed her off, leaving Shiori laughing on the floor in mock pain. Shiori just couldn't resist one last teasing smirk at the completely flustered Ajin. "You really are a hopeless case, aren't you?" she whispered with a playful chuckle. Ajin remained silent, trying to process the overwhelming reality of their dangerous situation. She headed for the door, deciding it was finally time to get some rest. "Don't overthink things, Johnny boy," she added, looking back with a confident smile. With a swift click, the lights went out, plunging the room into quiet darkness. Alone in the shadows, Ajin sat upright, unable to escape his own heavy thoughts. He squeezed his eyes shut, the weight of his sister's tragedy still crushing him. Shiori gave a playful salute from the doorway before heading out for the night. She knew the real battle was only just beginning for both of them tomorrow. Shiori's safe house stood silent in the mountains, a fortress for their revenge. Back at school, the teacher's strict demands only made the tension rise higher. Bean sat frozen at his desk, his mind racing with Shiori's chilling warnings. He checked his phone nervously, hoping for any news about the ongoing chaos. Taeminjae watched him closely, his sinister plans already moving into their next phase. The constant pressure was suffocating, and Bean felt his nerves finally starting to snap. Suddenly, a heavy hand slammed onto his shoulder, making his heart nearly stop beating. "We need to talk," Minjae sneered, his cold eyes promising a world of pain. Bean's eyes went wide with pure terror as he realized there was no escape. Meanwhile, Ajin and Shiori shared a quiet meal, preparing for the battle ahead. Shiori was mid-bite when she suddenly remembered they had a massive deadline today. She immediately dialed her contacts, her voice turning sharp and strictly professional. "We need a plan," she told Ajin, who was just trying to eat. She boasted about her expertise, acting like the ultimate mentor for his revenge. Ajin watched her, wondering if she ever took a break from being intense. "We're going to crush them," she declared, her resolve harder than steel. Ajin nodded silently, knowing that her energy was exactly what he needed. She pumped her fists, ready to take on the entire corrupt industry alone. "First lesson," she started, pointing at the board. "Understanding our true enemy." Ajin listened intently, realizing that the path to justice was finally becoming clear. Shiori stared him down, her gaze piercing through those sharp lenses. Ajin clutched his notes, feeling the weight of the task ahead. The lesson had officially begun, but Ajin wasn't ready for this. "Why do you look so scared?" "We're just getting started," Shiori teased. She burst out laughing, removing her glasses with a playful smirk. But in an instant, the atmosphere shifted into something terrifyingly real. "Wait, give me a second to process this," Ajin desperately screamed. Shiori didn't hesitate, her eyes locking onto his every single movement. His heart pounded as he realized he was in serious trouble. Suddenly, a lightning-fast kick whipped past his face, sealing the deal. Ajin barely moved in time as Shiori's relentless pressure continued to mount. She moved like a blur, her speed far beyond anything he'd ever witnessed. "Stop! You're going to actually kill me!" Ajin shouted, trembling in sheer terror. Shiori's crimson eyes narrowed, focusing solely on breaking his weak spirit today. Her fist shattered right through his notebook, leaving him completely defenseless and stunned. "Why are you so slow, Ajin?" "This is just the warm-up," she mocked. He gulped hard, realizing the true gap between a rookie and a pro. Shiori threw her head back and laughed, thoroughly enjoying his pathetic state. With one final strike, she sent him crashing down to the hard floor. Meanwhile, Minjae and Bean watched from the distance, plotting their next sinister move. Meanwhile, the sound of a heavy blow echoed through the empty park. Bean collapsed to the ground, his body trembling with every breath. Minjae just laughed, finding his friend's pathetic tears absolutely hilarious. He leaned in close, mocking the very idea of mercy or escape. "Is this really all you've got? You're such a disappointment, Bean." The pressure was unbearable, a nightmare that simply wouldn't end. Minjae's eyes flared with madness as he tightened his brutal grip. Back at the house, Ajin stared blankly, nursing his fresh wounds. Shiori let out a heavy sigh, realizing how much work remained. "Don't worry, Ajin. I'll make sure you're ready for the real fight. This is the filth wreckers use to ruin lives, just for some easy clicks. These fake headlines are how they destroyed Ari's reputation step by calculated step. They even exploited Kim Chi-min's tragic passing to fabricate a completely false narrative." Ajin's blood boiled as the sheer scale of their cruelty finally sank in. Shiori laid it all out, explaining how they profit from everyone's darkest moments. "Don't worry, Ajin. I've already got the evidence we need to bury them." She pulled up a photo of Minjae, the coward hiding behind his screen. "Take a look. This is the man who started this entire web of lies." Shiori's smirk said it all. The hunters were about to become the prey. The next morning, the stage was set for a reckoning at the school. Minjae slumped over his desk, unaware his secret world was finally crumbling down. We had to track his true motives before he could cause more damage. Ajin gritted his teeth, the fire of revenge burning brighter than ever before. Shiori kept a close watch, peering through her lens to find their opening. The classroom seemed normal, but a dangerous snake was hiding in plain sight. "Hello? I need backup right now. The situation is getting out of hand." Shiori's voice trembled as she realized the massive fish they were actually chasing. "Get here fast! If we miss this moment, we lose our only real lead." Every second of the recording was precious proof of their sick, twisted games. Yoongu was a monster, meeting his opponents with a truly terrifying, ruthless power. Shiori was finally making the call, her voice filled with a newfound excitement. "Wait, are you serious? Everything we needed was right there the whole time?" She didn't waste a second, her eyes focusing on the final phase of revenge. The sun set over the school, signaling the start of a long-awaited confrontation. Ajin didn't hesitate, lunging forward and grabbing the coward by his expensive collar. "You think you can just walk away after what you did to my sister?" Minjae's arrogance vanished instantly, replaced by the cold realization that he was caught. Tell me the truth right now, or this won't end well for you. A single drop fell onto Ajin's hand as the tension reached its breaking point. The once mighty bully broke down, sobbing pathetically as his world finally fell apart. Ajin slammed the coward against the wall, his grip tightening with every breath. You thought you could destroy my family and just walk away? Ajin roared. A heavy blow landed squarely, shattering the last of Min-jae's pathetic lies. Tears streamed down the bully's face as his fake confidence finally dissolved. Another crushing strike met its mark, ending the era of his cruel games. Ajin's eyes flared with a righteous fury that left his enemy absolutely paralyzed. Min-jae slumped over, in a broken shell of the man who once felt untouchable. This is for my sister, Ajin muttered, finally turning his back on him. Left alone in the shadows, the wrecker's driver could only weep in silence. His world had completely collapsed, leaving nothing but the weight of his sins. A chilling grin spread across Min-jae's face, proving his pathetic tears were just another lie. He laughed like a madman, finally revealing the truly sinister nature hidden beneath his act. This is way too easy. I've played everyone like a perfect fiddle, he boasted triumphantly. He gripped the phone tightly, ready to unleash a scandal that would ruin Ajin forever. Look at this masterpiece. Everything is going exactly according to my plan, Min-jae sneered loudly. But despite his boasting, Min-jae eventually found himself kneeling before a silent and focused Ajin. You did well today, Bean. I might actually let you keep your allowance this time. Bean stared back, his face a mangled mess, yet a strange, haunting smile remained fixed. Min-jae checked the viral numbers, delighted that his fabricated video was finally taking over school. His eyes flared with a dark delight as he prepared to deliver the final blow. Ajin retreated to the rooftop, his mind a whirlwind of crushing guilt and exhaustion. What are you doing here all alone? Saori asked, her energy cutting the silence. He looked up at her, barely able to find the words to explain himself. His knuckles were raw and bruised, silent proof of the fight he just survived. He looked away, knowing he had broken the one rule she gave him today. I told you to stay out of trouble, Saori snapped, her frustration boiling over. She pointed an accusatory finger while Ajin sat there in a heavy, guilty silence. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing anymore, Ajin finally shouted back desperately. Saori's next words hit him like a physical blow, catching him completely off guard. He realized then that being a driver meant more than just knowing how to fight. Ajin felt the weight of Saori's words, his energy completely drained from the day. He looked up, trying to find the strength to face the challenges ahead. Suddenly, Saori's hand shot forward, grabbing him firmly by the collar for attention. Stand up. You can't afford to look this pathetic if you want real revenge. Ajin cast his gaze downward, reflecting on the long road of suffering he'd endured. He knew she was right, but the physical and mental toll was becoming immense. He sighed deeply, his silence speaking volumes about the burden he was currently carrying. Saori leaned in, her voice low as she began to explain the next step. She let out a confident laugh, knowing exactly how to handle the situation perfectly. But her next revelation left Ajin completely frozen in shock, eyes wide with disbelief. Ajin and Saori arrive at the dojo, ready to start his intense physical transformation. Inside, the young students are already training hard, showing off their impressive skills. Saori laughs, seeing the kids' energy as they continue their focused practice session. She greets the little warriors warmly, and they instantly light up with pure joy. Suddenly, a massive presence approaches the group, signaling that the master has finally arrived. Meet Master Jerry, a legendary fighter who now focuses on raising the next generation. Ajin bows deeply, showing his respect to the man who will forge him anew. Jerry smiles, adjusting his glasses while observing the determination in the young boy's eyes. The kids excitedly point, shouting that Saori has finally brought her new boyfriend along. Saori plays along with the joke, while a flustered Ajin wonders what he's into. Saori looks up at the towering master, wondering if Jerry is the real deal. Jerry gives her a reassuring pat, promising to turn Ajin into a true warrior. He wraps a heavy arm around Ajin, laughing at the boy's nervous expression. Take it easy, Ajin shouts as Jerry's rock-solid grip begins the evaluation. The master finds his reaction hilarious, realizing the kid has a long way to go. Shiori bows deeply, officially entrusting Ajin's life and training to the legendary master. Ajin breaks into a cold sweat, finally grasping the brutal path ahead of him. Jerry's confident smirk suggests he's already planning the first grueling lesson for today. Later that night, Shiori speeds through the city, her mind racing with dangerous thoughts. Suddenly her phone rings. I'm flashing a cryptic call from the mysterious Pacific blue whale. Shiori exhales sharply, the weight of the investigation finally starting to take its toll. She maneuvers her rugged SUV through the city streets, desperate for some much-needed rest. Suddenly, something catches her eye, causing her heart to skip a frantic beat. Her pupils dilate in total shock as she realizes the danger is much closer. Are you kidding me right now? She growls, slamming her foot onto the accelerator. With white-knuckled focus, Shiori prepares herself for the high-stakes confrontation ahead of her. Her phone lights up again, the Pacific blue whale demanding her immediate, undivided attention. One last look in the mirror confirms that there is no turning back now. She vanishes into the twilight, heading straight toward the heart of the enemy's territory. Meanwhile, back at the dojo, poor Ajin is currently being devoured by tiny warriors. Ajin is absolutely drained, his body finally reaching its limit after Jerry's relentless testing. Suddenly, the dojo doors swing open as Master Jerry's wife, Yukyung, makes her entrance. She stares in disbelief at the chaotic scene and the exhausted boy on the floor. Everyone just relax, she says, with a calm smile, instantly soothing the tense atmosphere. Jerry tries to act tough, but Ajin can see right through the master's playful facade. Yukyung stands tall, commanding the room while the little students watch her in total awe. Even the legendary Master Jerry seems to shrink a little under his wife's stern gaze. She turns to Ajin, offering words of encouragement for the grueling journey he started. Ajin takes a deep breath, mentally preparing for the next phase of his transformation. With the team assembled, the real work begins to forge Ajin into a deadly weapon. Ajin finds himself stuck in a car with a bunch of rowdy, energetic kids. Jerry carefully drops off each student, finishing the dojo's daily transportation route. Jerry flashes a cheerful heart sign, trying to lighten Ajin's gloomy, heavy mood. Ajin stares into the distance, his eyes reflecting the deep trauma of his past. He wipes away a tear with his bandaged hand, struggling to stay strong. The van sits alone under the streetlights, a quiet pause in a chaotic night. Jerry gives one final pep talk, pushing Ajin to face the trials ahead. Suddenly, the boy's eyes widen as he realizes the van is pulling away. Ajin sprints down the dark road, desperately trying to catch the departing vehicle. Inside the car, Jerry and Yukyung exchange a knowing look about Ajin's future. Jerry's eyes widen in shock as he realizes Ajin's truly pushing his physical limits. Faster! Jerry screams, while Yukyung just laughs at his chaotic training methods. Ajin sprints through the dark, every muscle screaming as he chases his goal. He finally makes it to the CAG Taekwondo dojo, gasping for his life. Sweat pours down his face as his lungs burn with every desperate breath. Jerry and Yukyung wave from the window, clearly enjoying the young boy's struggle. With a final gasp, Ajin's legs give out and he collapses onto the pavement. His vision blurs from exhaustion, but the fire in his heart remains unextinguished. Yukyung rushes to his side, handing him water to soothe his parched throat. Jerry stands over him with a proud smirk, knowing the real training begins now. Ajin slumps down, his body screaming for air after that brutal run. He eyes the medals, realizing the standard of excellence expected here. His gaze hardens, fueled by a burning need to become a weapon. The dojo bell rings out, signaling that his real transformation starts now. Looking up at his mentors, Ajin prepares for the next grueling challenge. Jerry stares him down, ensuring the boy's resolve is truly unbreakable. Yukyung gives a cheerful thumbs up, trusting in his untapped potential. Get moving! Jerry roars, pushing him to break past his limits again. Without a second thought, Ajin leans forward, ready to explode into action. He sprints into the morning light, leaving his old weak self behind. Days turn into weeks as Ajin pushes his body to the absolute breaking point. Even the chaotic energy of the kids can't dampen his newfound sense of purpose. Every morning starts with a sprint through the city to sharpen his fading reflexes. Master Jerry watches closely, making sure every movement is precise and filled with power. The transformation is slow, but the weak boy he once was is finally vanishing. He moves with a new grace, heading toward the school to confront his past. Leaves drift in the wind as a quiet calm settles over the busy city streets. Ajin acts like a normal student again, but his mind is always on revenge. Meanwhile, Shiori keeps watch from a distance, tracking every move the enemy makes. She hears a familiar voice through her earpiece, signaling that the operation has begun. Shiori jokes that Ajin is finally starting to look like a real driver. Ajin checks the news. He noticing the rising chaos surrounding Jungkook's latest viral video. "I told you," Shiori whispers, knowing the enemy is about to slip up. She keeps her focus sharp, refusing to let any detail escape her eyes. Ajin feels the pressure mounting as the final phase of their plan approaches. Shiori closes her eyes, mentally rehearsing every move for their high-stakes mission. Suddenly, a sharp alert pings in Ajin's ear, signaling the target is moving. From her vantage point, Shiori watches the facility, waiting for the perfect opening. Inside the ring, the Vegetable Man begins a brutal display of orchestrated violence. He delivers a crushing blow, fueling the bloodthirsty audience on Jungkook's channel. Min-jae gathers his remaining lackeys to set a devious trap for poor Ajin. He laughs, boasting about how easily he'll crush their former hero's reputation. The goons watch in awe, realizing Min-jae has truly become a heartless monster. To prove his dominance, Min-jae delivers a swift strike to his own man. Bean stares at his phone in horror as the fabrication plan goes live. Little do they know, Shiori is already tracking their every move from nearby. Violence erupts as Min-jae punishes anyone who dares to question his new authority. Bean is left mangled, becoming a mere puppet for Min-jae's cruel psychological games. Min-jae smokes calmly, his eyes filled with a terrifying, cold-blooded thirst for revenge. He stares at the broken Bean, ensuring the fatty knows exactly who's boss. Min-jae's obsession with fame has turned him into a monster with no limits. Bean can only tremble in fear, begging for a mercy that will never come. "You're going to help me whether you like it or not," Min-jae grins wickedly. He looks back at his followers, demanding they witness his absolute authority. The goons waste no time, forcing the terrified boy to his knees. Bean's spirit is broken, caught in a cycle of endless torment and despair. Even the onlookers are stunned by the cold intensity radiating from their leader. To Min-jae, these people are just pawns in his grand, twisted game. He takes a long breath, savoring the chaos he's about to unleash. With a cold gaze, he prepares to strike Ajin where it hurts most. The goons bow low, fully acknowledging Min-jae as their new, terrifying leader. "Please, just tell us what to do," they beg, desperate for his approval. Min-jae's cold eyes narrow as he begins to calculate his next cruel move. He looks down on them like garbage, savoring every second of his power. "Everything is going according to plan," he says, his voice dripping with malice. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as the goons react to a terrifying new threat. With a snap of his fingers, Min-jae orders them to start the operation. A twisted smile spreads across his face, revealing the monster hiding within. Elsewhere, Haeyoung weeps in silence while a dark shadow looms over her shoulder. The danger reaches its peak as the villain targets Ajin's family in the hospital. Min-jae's ego is through the roof, treating this whole situation like a game. His influence spreads as even more students bow down to his twisted authority. He successfully turned the entire schoolyard into his own personal playground. Bean watches in horror, realizing just how deep this conspiracy really goes. A single notification brings a wicked smile to Min-jae's face. "It's time." "He's actually going to do it," Bean stammers, paralyzed by the sheer cruelty. Under the cover of night, a secluded warehouse becomes the center of operations. Traces of a hurried stay suggest that someone was being kept here recently. The Pacific Blue Whale channel is about to drop its most controversial video. Shiori checks the feed, knowing that their time to strike is finally here. The latest viral video is making waves, masking a much darker truth underneath. Shiori uncovers Jungkook's detailed profile, realizing his past is far more complicated. "Wait, this doesn't add up," she mutters, and her eyes fixed on the screen. Exhausted from the stakeout, she realizes how much this case is actually taking. Her navigation system flickers to life as she prepares for her next move. Deep in the city's shadows, Junggu emerges with a cold, calculated plan. He checks his phone, his frustration boiling over at the lack of results. "I told you to handle it!" He roars into the speaker, pacing impatiently. The pressure from his bosses is mounting, leaving him no room for error. He hangs up, unaware that the hunters are finally closing in on him. Junggu paces the dark streets, barking orders into his phone to save his career. "I need a viral hit now," he snarls, feeling the walls closing in. Every desperate word he speaks is a testament to the monster he has become. Standing alone in the cold night, he has no idea he's being hunted. From the shadows, Shiori watches his every move, her heart heavy with painful memories. A single tear falls as she remembers the families destroyed by this man's greed. She steps out to face the giant, refusing to let another innocent soul suffer. Behind that hood lies a resolve forged in fire and a hunger for justice. Meanwhile, Min-jae smirks at his screen, ready to drop his most devastating fabrication yet. "Let's turn Ajin into trash," he texts, fueled by the skyrocketing views he craves. Min-jae tightens his grip on Bean, demanding he spill the latest secrets. "Yes, sir. We'll make sure Ajin never sees it coming," his lackey shouts. But a sudden accusation catches the goon off guard, leaving him speechless. Nearby, the popular crowd remains oblivious to the storm brewing around them. And the pressure starts to boil over as Bean desperately tries to escape. Junggu stands tall, confident that his newest asset will secure his victory. Shiori watches from the shadows, her eyes fixed on the target ahead. Every breath counts now. There is absolutely no room for a mistake. Junggu lets out a cold laugh, believing he has already won the game. Little does he know, the ultimate hunter is finally ready to strike. Junggu's presence looms large, but Shiori isn't backing down from this chilling confrontation. He stops suddenly, sensing that someone might be watching his every calculated move. As he walks away, Shiori realizes the true danger they are actually facing. Meanwhile, Ajin throws everything into his training, determined to finally get much stronger. Master Jerry pushes him to the limit, testing his speed and his resolve. "As you're getting better, kid," Jerry says with a rare, truly encouraging smile. But the master doesn't hold back, launching a devastating high kick toward him. The blow connects with perfect precision, sending Ajin flying across the training floor. He hits the ground hard, gasping for air as the world spins around. Jerry stands over him, reminding Ajin that the real world won't be easy. Jerry moves like a blur, swinging a sharp blade right at Ajin's chest. Before he can even react, the master pins him down, cornering his prey. Ajin screams in pure terror, convinced that his life is officially ending. He gasps for air, waiting for the pain that miraculously never seems to arrive. That's when Jerry reveals his trick, showing the blade was just a harmless toy. "Fear is your biggest enemy," Jerry laughs, watching the boy's soul return. The lesson is clear. To defeat a monster, you must first master your panic. With a kind smile, Jerry reminds him that a steady heart is a shield. Ajin recalls his fight with Guy, remembering how easily the bully crumbled. But standing before the towering Junggu, he realizes strength is a different beast entirely. Junggu's unhinged reaction to the strike proves he's a monster fueled by pure chaos. "Don't let fear win," Jerry advises, noticing the boy's resolve starting to truly harden. Meanwhile, Bean stands before Ajin's desecrated home, a victim of Min-jae's cruel manipulation. The poor guy is breaking down, trapped between his conscience and his terrifying surroundings. Every tear reflects a life ruined by the same wreckers he's now forced to serve. A sudden message from Min-jae sends him into a state of absolute, paralyzing panic. He hesitates, realizing the trap waiting for Ajin is deadlier than anything before it. Alone in the shadows, he makes a choice that will change everything for them. Min-jae's crew gathers outside the facility, ready to finalize their most malicious plan yet. They bring Hyung along, intent on using her to permanently destroy Ajin's social reputation. Ajin receives a desperate call, his heart sinking as he hears the panic. It's Bean, beaten and broken, sobbing, as he warns Ajin of the trap. But the call is cut short by a final, crushing blow from the bullies. Jerry looks on with concern, sensing that Ajin is about to snap completely. Meanwhile, Junggu is savoring the moment, confident that his trap is finally set. He uploads the malicious footage, determined to destroy Ajin's reputation once and for all. "An, you're done for!" Junggu screams into the void, fueled by his own insanity. The monster believes he's already won, celebrating a victory built on lies and pain. He roars with a terrifying excitement, blind to the storm that is gathering. Ajin marches through the silent hallway, ready to face the monsters waiting for him. Ajin returns home to find his door defaced and a chilling message. A single note points him toward the building's rooftop for answers. Stepping through the door, his heart sinks at the sight before him. He clutches the note as his anger begins to boil over. The bullies are already there, showing off their latest victim, poor Bean. Ajin stands tall, his gaze darkening as he prepares for a confrontation. Their leader laughs, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. Suddenly, the thugs charge forward with weapons drawn to take him down. But Ajin isn't the same weak kid they used to know anymore. They scramble up the stairs, but he's ready to deliver a brutal defeat. Ajin makes a perfect superhero landing, finally facing the thugs head-on. The leader's eyes widen in shock, unable to process his speed. Before he can react, Ajin connects with a devastating knee strike. He pivots instantly, sinking a heavy punch into the next attacker. Ajin remains cold and focused, systematically dismantling their entire group. Another thug swings a baseball bat, but Ajin blocks it effortlessly. His eyes glow with a terrifying intensity as he stares them down. Overwhelmed by fear, the last standing thug collapses to the floor. Ajin towers over them, looking more like a monster than a boy. He holds a sharp weapon to his throat, ending the fight instantly. The terrified bully lets out a piercing scream as his confidence completely shatters. Ajin stands over him, declaring that his reign of terror ends right now. He quickly turns to Bean, whose bloodied face tells a story of agony. With a grim expression, Ajin realizes that the road ahead is still long. Back at the apartment, he begins carefully cleaning and treating Bean's wounds. Each bandage is a quiet promise that things are about to change forever. Overwhelmed by the kindness, Bean finally lets out a heart-wrenching, desperate cry. He asks Ajin why he would bother helping someone who couldn't even fight. Through his tears, Bean roars about the unfairness of their cruel world. Ajin listens patiently, knowing their bond is the key to their eventual victory. Min-jae can't believe his perfect plan is falling apart before his eyes. He takes a slow drag of his cigarette, plotting his next move. Poor Hae-young looks on, her face a canvas of brutal defeat and exhaustion. Frustrated, Min-jae lashes out and strikes his own lackey for the failure. The group continues to drag Hae-young along, treating her like human garbage. "You think you can hide?" Min-jae roars. I'm grabbing her by the hair, but Hae-young isn't broken yet, landing a defiant spit right in his face. He wipes the mess away, his rage boiling over at her mocking smile. Without a second thought, he delivers a heavy strike to her stomach. She collapses to the floor, panting as the thugs surround their helpless prey. Min-jae's frustration reaches a boiling point as he realizes his control is slipping. He turns his fury on his own men, screaming for better results. The lackeys can only tremble in silence, terrified of his unpredictable rage. "Do you want to end up like the others?" he bellows at them. He quickly shifts back to a cold smirk, already plotting a new scheme. His eyes burn with a dark obsession that knows no limits or mercy. He paces back and forth, trying to calm the storm inside his head. "I am the one who calls the shots here," he laughs hysterically. Behind him, Hae-young remains broken on the floor, a victim of his cruelty. Without a second glance, Min-jae moves on to his next dark target. Min-jae's grip tightens as he forces Hae-young to listen to his cruel demands. Back at the apartment, the weight of the night finally begins to settle. Bean can hardly look at himself, feeling like a burden to his friend. But Ajin sees something different. He sees a reason to keep moving forward. They sit in heavy silence, preparing for the storm that is surely coming. Min-jae's goons are already watching, waiting for their chance to strike again. The trauma is deep, leaving Bean shaking from the memories of their cruelty. Ajin stands up, grabbing his jacket with a newfound sense of cold purpose. "Don't go alone," Bean whispers. But he knows Ajin has already decided. He disappears into the night, heading toward the one place he can get stronger, Junggu flashes a chilling smile, his scars reflecting a dark and hidden past. His phone buzzes, an unexpected call that sets the stage for more chaos. Junggu answers with a smirk, mocking whoever is on the other end. "You think you can hide?" he roars, his composure finally starting to snap. The threat is clear as he continues to scream into the cold night. His gaze narrows, fueled by a deep-seated hatred that knows no bounds. Junggu turns his back on the world, walking toward his next target. With a single, powerful grip, he crushes the phone into tiny splinters. He laughs manically, the broken device a symbol of his absolute control. "Just you wait, Ajin," he mutters, his eyes glowing with murderous intent. Shiori smiles behind the wheel, ready to show Junggu exactly what fear looks like. The muscle maniac is caught off guard as blinding headlights pierce through the dark. She isn't stopping, her cold smirk proving that she's just as insane as him. Tires screech against the pavement as she slams the pedal to the metal instantly. Junggu stares down the heavy vehicle, his arrogance finally starting to crumble away now. It's a game of chicken, and Shiori has no intention of blinking first tonight. Her eyes remain focused and indifferent, locked onto the target standing in her path. Reality hits him hard, and the once terrifying fighter lets out a scream of terror. At the last second, he dives for his life to avoid the crushing impact. The car screeches to a halt, leaving a humiliated Junggu trashed on the ground. Shiori leans out, odds enjoying the look of pure shock on Junggu's face now. Junggu can only roar in frustration as his targets slip away once again. "What you gonna do about it?" she teases, her laughter echoing through the alleyway. With a defiant gesture and a wink, she officially declares war on Junggu. But the true storm is brewing within the heart of young Lee Ajin. He walks through the silent city, his footsteps marking the start of retribution. Shiori watches him go, knowing that their path forward is fraught with danger. She realizes that to survive, Ajin must become something more than a victim. Their destination is set, the local gym where legends and warriors are forged. Meanwhile, Hayoung suffers another heavy blow, her resilience being tested to its limit. Min-jae stands over his prey, finally cornering the girl who defied his orders. He kneels down, eye-mocking Hayoung as she struggles to even stay conscious now. Min-jae pulls out his phone, ready to record her humiliation for his next video. Despite her injuries, Hayoung stares back with eyes that refuse to be broken tonight. The pain becomes too much as she lets out a heart-wrenching, desperate scream. Min-jae delivers a heavy blow, showing absolutely no mercy to his helpless victim. Even his loyal goons start to worry, realizing their leader is losing his mind. "Don't you dare talk back to me!" Min-jae roars, his rage completely unhinged now. He raises a bottle, ready to end this confrontation once and for all. His men watch in pure horror, paralyzed by the level of cruelty before them. Jerry steps in, his presence alone enough to send chills down their spines. The master towers over Min-jae, making the bully look small and insignificant. "Stop right there," Jerry commands, his authority leaving Min-jae absolutely paralyzed with fear. He ignores the cowards and kneels down to help the broken girl. Seeing Hayoung's battered state, a rare flash of sympathy crosses the master's face. Without a word, he carries her away from the trash that harmed her. But Min-jae isn't done yet, his bruised ego flaring up into blind rage. He grabs a glass bottle, ready to commit the ultimate act of cowardice. Glass shatters against Jerry's back, but the master doesn't even flinch an inch. "Did you really think that would work?" Min-jae's arrogant grin quickly begins to fade. Jerry's terrifying gaze says it all. Min-jae has just signed his own death warrant. What is he?" Min-jae stammers, realizing his cowardly attack didn't even leave a scratch. The master simply walks away, leaving the bullies trembling in the wake of his power. Min-jae seethes with a mix of humiliation and pure, unadulterated terror at being ignored. Meanwhile, Shiori receives a frantic call, her eyes widening as she hears the news. "Ajin is in trouble," she mutters, shifting into high gear to reach her friend. She knows the wreckers are closing in and every single second counts right now. Her G-Wagon roars through the night, a black streak of vengeance on the highway. Back at the dojo, Min-jae barges in, desperate to reclaim some shred of his pride. Even his own men are horrified, sensing that this reckless move will be their last. Back at the dojo, Min-jae confronts Guy, his patience wearing dangerously thin. He mockingly taps Guy's head, treating his own man like a brainless tool. "You're useless," he screams, fully exerting his dominance over the terrified coward. Min-jae dismisses him like trash, already planning his next cruel move alone. A sinister smile spreads across his face. He loves being the mastermind. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the emergency center where tension hangs heavy. Yukyong rushes through the halls, her heart racing as she searches for Jerry. Finding him alive, she breaks down, tearfully scolding him for being reckless. Jerry can only watch in silence, the weight of his failure sinking in. He realizes the stakes are higher than ever, and there's no turning back. Jerry explains the situation to Yukyong, but his eyes reflect deep worry. They check on Hyung, realizing the wreckers have crossed a dangerous line. "I won't let them get away with this," Yukyong vows, clutching her phone. Meanwhile, Ajin rushes back to the dojo, hoping his master is safe. He smiles for a brief second, believing he finally found a place to belong. But the doors open to a nightmare. His new home has been completely destroyed. Min-jae sits in the center of the wreckage, wearing a truly demonic smile. The sight of the ruins sends a wave of pure fury through Ajin's veins. "You're not leaving here in one piece," he growls, eyes burning with hatred. Min-jae simply reaches for his phone, ready to broadcast Ajin's final moments. Min-jae laughs maniacally, filming the chaos as if it's all a game. Ajin stands his ground even as the thugs prepare to strike him down. "Watch carefully," Min-jae screams, too thirsty for the fame of his viral broadcast. A heavy bat swings toward him, but the training has already kicked in. Battered and bruised, Ajin refuses to break under the pressure of their assault. Shiori stands by his side, both disgusted by the darkness they've uncovered tonight. Yukyong whispers a final warning, reminding him that the real battle starts now. Master Jerry watches proudly, knowing he has forged a weapon for true justice. With one sharp pivot, Ajin launches into the air with explosive, refined power. He delivers a crushing flying kick, meeting his enemy with a brutal defeat. The thugs, frozen in fear, realize their numbers mean nothing against this monster. Every coward in the room starts to panic as the atmosphere shifts completely. Ajin takes his stance, ready to unleash months of grueling training on them. "This is going to be legendary," Min-jae laughs, recording every second of chaos. Surrounded on all sides, the thugs realize they are the ones being hunted. Ajin locks onto his target, his eyes showing no mercy for these criminals. A bat swings wildly, but he's already moving before it even gets close. He flows through the crowd like a shadow, meeting every strike with precision. "Is that all you've got?" he mocks as more bats come crashing down. The real justice begins now, and Ajin is finally ready to take it. Ajin strikes with the force of 1,000 regrets, moving like a shadow. He slams into the first bully, refusing to let any of them escape. "I can see everything now," he whispers, his golden eyes locked on target. Another kick sends a thug flying, shattering the arrogance they once held high. They try to fight back. But Ajin is already 10 steps ahead. One by one, the bullies fall, their reign of terror finally reaching its end. "This is incredible content," Min-jae screams, still filming the chaos with a manic grin. Ajin turns his gaze toward him, the final boss of this twisted school nightmare. The largest thug charges in a desperate attempt to protect his pathetic leader's life. With a fluid motion, Ajin evades and prepares to deliver the final crushing blow. Ajin dances through the chaos, dodging every amateur swing with effortless grace. He plants his foot firmly, channeling every ounce of his newfound power. This isn't a game anymore. His eyes reflect a cold, unstoppable resolve. A massive strike sends another thug soaring, crashing into the dojo walls. Min-jae just shrugs, still recording the violence as if it's mere entertainment. Is that all?" the bully sneers, refusing to acknowledge the shifting tide. Ajin lunges forward, his fist a blur as he targets the mastermind. A coward attempts a strike from behind, but Ajin's instincts are sharper. Shiori stares into the night, knowing the final showdown is drawing near. She makes the call, reaching out to Yukyong for the ultimate backup plan. Shiori grips the wheel, her heart sinking as she realizes the trap is set. Yukyong answers the call, her voice trembling with the weight of the new evidence. "It's worse than we thought," she sighs, closing her eyes in brief exhaustion. Shiori pushes the engine to its limit, praying she isn't already too late. Back at the hospital, Jerry stares at the screen, his soul feeling battered too. Hyung lies still, a silent victim of the wrecker's heartless pursuit for viral views. Shiori arrives at the hideout, pushing open the heavy door to face the darkness. A bloody handprint on the wall tells a story of a desperate, final struggle. She follows the trail through the wreckage of the place they once called home. Her eyes go wide as she finally sees the true horror waiting inside. Shiori stands frozen, witnessing the absolute carnage Ajin has left in his wake. He's lost in a trance of pure rage, ready to deliver the final strike. "Ajin, stop!" Shiori screams, racing across the dojo to reach her broken friend. But he doesn't hear her. His mind is trapped in a dark, silent void. She lunges forward, catching his arm just before he crosses the point of no return. The adrenaline finally fades and Ajin collapses as his body hits its absolute limit. Shiori stands over him, her heart heavy with the weight of this hollow victory. "Wake up!" she cries, desperately checking if he's still with her in this hell. His eyes flutter open, blood masking the face of a boy who's lost everything. Meanwhile, Minjae hides in the shadows, frantically uploading the footage of Ajin's downfall. The world finally sees the video exposing the dark truth behind Ari's tragic end. Back in the shadows, Minjae finds himself cornered by a much more dangerous predator. A cold hand reaches out, reminding the small-time bully who's truly in charge. Jungu smirks, mocking Minjae's failed plans as he grips him by the hair. "You really thought you could play this game alone?" Jungu asks with a terrifying grin. Outside, the rainy streets are filled with the flashing lights of a grim crime scene. Yukyung arrives to meet the investigators, hiding her deep connection to the case. She watches Shiori closely, remembering the first time they met under similar circumstances. The detective is left stunned as the mysterious woman disappears back into the rain. Shiori steels her resolve, knowing the real battle for justice is only just beginning. Or Yukyung sits with Shiori, sensing the heavy burden the young girl is carrying. Under the cold rain, Shiori finally opens up about the day her world shattered. Years ago, that same rain fell on a silent apartment hiding a horrific secret. The police swarmed the building, but for one family, they were already too late. Yukyung stood among the officers, her heart sinking as the grim reality set in. Her eyes widened in terror at a small sound coming from within the darkness. Trembling, she pulled back the closet door to find the only survivor left behind. There sat a young Shiori, broken and alone amidst the ruins of her life. "Get an ambulance, now!" Yukyung screamed, desperate to save the traumatized child. They raced through the storm, carrying Shiori toward a future fueled by silent pain. Shiori looks at him, on her eyes finally reflecting the heavy truth she's carried. The silence between them grows heavy as the past begins to resurface. She finally breaks, the tears falling as she shares her darkest childhood memory. Ajin listens intently, realizing they both share a bond forged in deep tragedy. Meanwhile, the cold red lights of the ICU signal a different kind of struggle. Ajin opens his eyes, finding himself alive but buried under layers of bandages. He sits up in a panic, wondering how he even survived that brutal encounter. "Take it easy, kid," Jerry says, greeting him with a warm, familiar smile. Ajin starts to apologize for the dojo, but Jerry stops him right there. "You protected yourself, and for that, I am truly proud of you, Ajin." Jerry smiles, telling Ajin that his instincts were actually spot on. Doctors move quickly through the halls as the weight of the incident settles. The master admits that things are far messier than anyone ever imagined. Ajin's heart stops when he realizes he isn't the only one here. Jerry rubs his head, struggling to explain the girl in the next bed. "Wait, Hyung is here too?" Ajin shouts, unable to believe his eyes. Jerry nods solemnly, confirming that she's resolved to tell the whole truth. Across the room, Hyung lies broken, a victim of her own cruel choices. She looks at Ajin with haunted eyes, finally ready to face her sins. It all started back at school when they first trapped Ari in their web. Money was all Hyung ever cared about back then, she admits regretfully. She and her group were experts at finding easy targets to exploit. One day, they found the ultimate prize, news of Ari's sudden death. Wait, is she actually gone? Hyung asked, her voice finally beginning to tremble. Her friends only laughed, seeing the tragedy as just another way to get famous. Hyung tried to act indifferent, but Ari's death had shaken her to the core. She realized then that her greed had made her a monster in Ari's demise. Every night afterward, her quiet apartment felt like a prison of her own making. She couldn't escape the darkness that seemed to be closing in from every corner. Ari's haunting presence loomed over her, a constant reminder of her unforgivable sins. Every night Ari's face haunts my dreams, Hyung whispers, her eyes filled with terror. The ghostly image of her victim lingers, a chilling reminder of her unforgivable crimes. Trapped in a cycle of guilt, Hyung's sanity begins to slip away into the dark. Seori vanishes into the neon-lit streets, a lone hunter searching for a way out. In her cramped hideout, she endures the isolation, fueled only by the need for justice. Guy freezes in place, realizing he's been caught by the one man he fears most. Yoongu slams him against the wall, his patience for these weaklings finally running out. He looms over Seori, his presence a heavy shadow that suffocates any hope of escape. "I'll do whatever it takes," Guy pleads, but his words fall on deaf ears now. Without a second glance, Junggu walks away, leaving Guy to rot in his own failures. Junggu's grin grew wider as he watched his twisted masterpiece finally unfold. Seori trembled in the corner, realizing the true monster was standing right there. Tied and gagged, Minjae's arrogant attitude vanished the moment Junggu pulled out a phone. One brutal strike was all it took to remind Minjae who held the power. Minjae sobbed through the tape, his eyes pleading for a mercy that wouldn't come. Junggu burst into a manic laughter, grabbing Guy's wrist with a crushing grip. Guy stood paralyzed, his mind racing to find a way out of this nightmare. "Welcome to the family," Junggu laughed, pulling Guy into his suffocating embrace. A chilling smile stretched across Junggu's face, signaling the end for his enemies. Guy could only watch in terror as Junggu reveled in his own madness. Minjae weeps, realizing the terrifying role he's been forced to play in this game. Guy grits his teeth, the weight of Junggu's sadistic orders finally sinking in deep. Junggu laughs, dragging Minjae up like a puppet for his first brutal lesson today. Guy's eyes widen in absolute horror as the reality of the situation hits home. With a single heavy strike, the hierarchy of their group is permanently rewritten now. Junggu revels in the chaos, his tattooed arms ready to enforce his twisted will. Guy stares at his hands, realizing he has become exactly what he once feared. Another impact echoes through the room, sealing Minjae's fate in this web of betrayal. Meanwhile, the familiar yellow sign of the Taekwondo gym stands silent under the sun. The doors are barred shut, marked as temporarily closed after the devastating school brawl. Jerry cleans the ruins of his dojo, a silent testament to the recent chaos. The group gathers to face the harsh reality that their enemy is far more dangerous. Yukyong can barely process the scale of the conspiracy unfolding right before her eyes. "This is now an attempted murder case," she warns, looking at them with dread. Ajin freezes in shock, realizing his quest for revenge has put everyone in danger. Seori stands firm, her connection as a driver for the wreckers finally coming to light. Ajin's resolve only hardens, his eyes burning with a hunger for true justice. Yukyong explains that involving themselves any deeper could easily lead to their own deaths. Seori realizes the law isn't enough to protect them from such powerful, greedy people. "I won't stop," she declares, choosing to fight for the family she lost years ago. Seori stares back at Yukyong, her heart heavy with the memories she tried to bury. She tells Ajin that her family was the first victim of this organization's cruel game. Yukyong stands up in disbelief, unable to fathom how deep this conspiracy truly goes. She notices Ajin's clenched fist, a silent promise of the war that is coming next. Seori screams at the injustice, remembering how a single video destroyed her parents' entire legacy. A fabricated scandal about food waste went viral, turning their famous brand into a joke. The internet swarmed with hateful comments, demanding her family pay for crimes they never committed. Seori breaks down, the weight of being the lone survivor finally crushing her spirit completely. She refuses to back down now, begging Yukyong to help her finish what they started. Saori grabs Ajin's arm, her desperate grip signaling she won't let him face this alone. Yukyong stood in the silent hallway, the weight of the recent tragedy finally sinking in. She knew the path they were taking was dangerous, but there was no turning back. Saori couldn't hold back her tears, screaming out the frustration that had built up inside. "Why didn't you protect them?" she yelled, her heart breaking for everyone they had lost. Master Jerry offered a gentle smile, trying to be the anchor in this chaotic storm. Even through the pain, he remained focused on what truly mattered for their future success. He looked down at Ajin, both of them wearing the scars of their brutal battle. Ajin looked back with newfound resolve, ready to finish what they had started together. Without a second thought, the young man dashed toward the exit to face his destiny. Left alone in the ruins, Jerry and Yukyong shared a quiet embrace amid the wreckage. Ajin and Saori drove through the night, the silence between them heavy. "We need to find them before it's too late," Saori stated firmly. Ajin looked over, still struggling to process the sheer scale of the conspiracy. He leaned back and covered his eyes, the weight of everything feeling unbearable. The SUV sped through the city, heading toward their next crucial destination. "Do you really think this evidence will be enough?" Ajin asked quietly. Saori's eyes flashed with intensity as she promised to make them pay. Ajin could only hope she was right, though his heart was racing fast. They finally arrived at the hospital where Hayoung lay battered and exhausted. Ajin watched over her, ready to record the truth that would change everything. Hayoung lay there, and the physical evidence of their cruelty etched onto her face. Ajin felt a cold rage settle in, his eyes burning with a new fire. Saori knew they couldn't waste another second. It was time to finally move. They peeled out of the parking lot, the tires screaming against the asphalt. Their destination was the massive media headquarters towering over the city skyline. "Just follow my lead and stay quiet," Saori whispered as they entered. They eventually reached the archives, a place strictly forbidden to the public. Ajin looked around in awe, realizing the sheer volume of secrets kept here. Saori swiped the stolen security card, the lock clicking open with ease. They stepped inside the vault, ready to find the proof that would destroy Geico. They found the man behind the screen, the legendary operator known as Blue Whale. He turned with a knowing smirk, as if he had been expecting their arrival. Ajin reached out to shake his hand, sealing a powerful alliance to find justice. Saori couldn't help but smile, watching the two men finally join their forces together. "Don't get too comfortable," Blue Whale joked, finally letting the heavy tension start to fade. He stood tall beside Ajin, ready to guide the young man through the coming fire. "You need to see this," he said, pulling up a video on his monitor. It was a report on a massive disaster used by wreckers to manipulate the masses. Next came a rocket launch, showing how sensationalism is often used to distract the world. Finally, he showed him a global conflict, proving how easily the media controls public perception. The internet was flooded with toxic comments and fake headlines designed to destroy reputations. Blue Whale TV was the only channel with enough influence to challenge the lies. Ajin watched as everyone around him mindlessly consumed the manufactured drama on their phones. The wreckers were already sharing the next celebrity scandal to keep the cycle going. "Someone has to stop this madness before more lives are lost," Ajin realized. The operator took a deep breath, knowing this reveal could cost him everything. Then the screen displayed the headline, "The Full Story of the Lee Ari Case." Ajin gasped for air as the cold truth finally began to unfold before him. Saori placed a steady hand on his shoulder, bracing him for the coming storm. "Are you ready to see the face of the man who did this?" Blue Whale asked. Ajin's eyes burned with resolve, demanding they expose the villains who ruined his life. Whale just smirked, knowing the evidence they found would finally shatter the entire industry. They leaned in together, analyzing the twisted connections of this massive, high-level conspiracy. The trail of money and lies led directly to the heart of this headquarters. Saori watched the monitor, realizing their fight was only just beginning against these giants. The chart clearly showed how Yoongu and Geico were just pawns for Jay's entertainment. Yet, a mysterious shadow remained at the top, pulling the strings of the entire operation. Whale closed his eyes for a moment, weighed down by the dangerous secrets he held. Is it actually possible to defeat them? Siori asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Quayle gestured to the phone, reminding them they now held the ultimate weapon for justice. Ajin stared at the screen, unable to believe the evidence right in front of him. "This is our smoking gun," he whispered, clutching the phone with a shaky hand. Blue Whale smiled warmly, knowing they finally had the upper hand in this game. "The path ahead is dangerous, but we've already crossed the point of no return." Siori shouted with a burning fire in her eyes, demanding they act immediately. Whale nodded calmly, certain that the truth would finally speak louder than their lies. They watched as the broadcast went live, exposing the fabricated evidence for millions to see. Ajin took a deep breath, feeling the crushing weight of their mission finally shifting. Siori cheered with excitement, but Ajin knew the real battle was only just starting. Oswale watched them with a knowing look as Siori teased Ajin about the future. Siori couldn't stop teasing Ajin about his newfound weapon, keeping the mood surprisingly light. They raced back onto the open road, the city lights blurring past their windows. Ajin opened his notebook, meticulously planning their next move to ensure nothing went wrong. "Don't be so stiff, Ajin. We finally have them right where we want them." But as he read the notes, he realized the scope of their enemy's influence. Siori's eyes hardened with a lethal focus, reminding him why they were really here. Ajin stared back, his own resolve sharpening as the gravity of the mission set in. The two shared a quiet understanding that tonight would change their lives forever. Their vehicle tore through the dark streets, heading straight toward the center of the storm. He gripped the notebook tightly, ready to unleash the truth and end this nightmare. Ajin knew their plan was risky, but his eyes showed he was ready for anything. Their car screeched through the dark city streets as they raced toward the secret hideout. "Stay sharp," Siori whispered, as they stepped into the pitch-black shadows of the alley. They finally reached the heavy door, the glow of Ajin's phone revealing the path ahead. Siori flicked open her tactical baton, the metal clink echoing through the silent corridor. "I can feel them in there," Ajin muttered, his senses dialed to the absolute maximum. He slowly reached for the handle, his hand steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. The door creaked open, revealing a room that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks. Piles of trash and old cups were scattered everywhere, showing the hideout was recently used. Siori carefully sifted through the garbage, searching for any scrap of evidence they left behind. Ajin carefully explored the hidden room, his senses screaming that someone was watching him. Suddenly, a terrifying eye peered through a crack in the wall, paralyzing him with fear. A mysterious hooded figure lunged out of the darkness, catching Ajin completely off guard. The heavy door slammed shut with a thunderous bang, locking them inside the trap. Ajin desperately pushed against the door, but it wouldn't budge no matter how hard he tried. Siori rushed into the room, her flashlight cutting through the gloom as she shouted his name. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice echoing in the small, cramped space of the hideout. Siori screamed in frustration, realizing they were exactly where the wreckers wanted them to be. Ajin looked around, his heart pounding as he searched for any way to escape this nightmare. In a flash of movement, Siori was struck by an unseen force, collapsing right before him. Siori wastes no time and forcefully grabs the heavy metal lock. With a powerful shove, she shatters the lock and bursts the door wide open. She screams at Ajin to stop spacing out and finally catch the fleeing suspect. The blue-hooded stranger realizes they broke free and sprints down the narrow alleyway. Ajin's eyes narrow with fierce determination as he immediately gives relentless chase. Panting heavily, the stranger desperately tries to put distance between them in the alley. But Ajin is incredibly fast, closing the dangerous gap with every single stride. Suddenly, Siori spots a narrow side street and comes to a complete dead halt. Unaware of her clever plan, Ajin stays right on the panicked stranger's heels. The frantic chase continues as the suspect desperately rounds another sharp, narrow corner. Ajin shouts for the runner to stop, his voice echoing through the street. The suspect ignores him, clenching his teeth and pushing himself even harder. Siori appears directly in his path, a confident smirk playing on her lips. Panic instantly floods the man's face as he realizes he is cornered. "Don't even think about it," Siori laughs, brandishing her expandable baton. She delivers a swift, non-lethal strike that sends the stranger to his knees. He collapses instantly, realizing the chase has finally come to an end. Shiori reaches out and roughly pulls back the suspect's concealing hoodie. A terrified young man is revealed, shaking under their intense, icy gazes. Ajin and Shiori tower over him, waiting for the truth to be told. The young lackey screams in total desperation, begging the duo to save him. Ajin looks on in confusion while Shiori demands he explain his sudden outburst. Shaking with fear, the boy insists that they must protect him from Minjae. Shiori crouches down with a smirk, mocking the boy for his cowardly display. "Why are you so scared?" She laughs, looking down at the trembling student. "Are we going to eat you or something?" Shiori continues to tease him. Ajin's gaze remains cold and serious as he demands the real truth. Shiori finally stops laughing, her expression shifting to one of intense focus. Ajin asks if the boy knows the current location of Minjae and Guy. Meanwhile, a group of bullies gathers outside a distant building to plan. The lead bully mocks the weak boy while digging through his stolen bag. Bean looks on with a bruised face, completely helpless to stop them. The group surrounds the poor student, he intending to keep their cruel torment going. Suddenly, Shiori interrupts the scene with her arms wide and a smirk. Ajin steps forward, placing a firm, steady hand on the lead bully's shoulder. The bully looks back with an arrogant grin, unimpressed by the intervention. He mocks Ajin, repeatedly poking his chest to provoke a violent reaction. But Ajin is faster, instantly grabbing the bully's hand in a crushing grip. His gaze turns lethal, signaling that he's done playing nice with these thugs. A nearby lackey screams in pure terror as he witnesses Ajin's overwhelming power. Shiori unleashes a lightning-fast kick, striking the bully squarely in the jaw. She glares with red-eyed intensity, warning him that his games are over. The defeated leader screams in agony, his face covered in fresh bruises. Ajin looks back with a cold, piercing gaze at the remaining terrified goons. "You guys should pick your friends more carefully," Shiori laughs mockingly. Ajin then grabs the bully by the throat, pinning him against the fence. The coward cries out for mercy, his tough guy act completely destroyed. Both Ajin and Shiori turn their attention to Bean, who looks dazed. Bean blushes deeply, overwhelmed by the sudden kindness of his new protectors. Later that night, Bean exits a PC cafe, ready for his mission. Bean watches from the shadows as a group of unsuspecting students walk by. A smoker stops to light up, completely unaware that he's being hunted. Jungu emerges with a sadistic grin, holding a camera to record the incident. Bean realizes the danger, but he's too terrified to even make a move. The predatory streamer confronts the students, looking for a way to provoke them. Online viewers mock the victims, ironically calling the bully One Punch Man for clout. Jungu demands they bow their heads, savoring the feeling of absolute power. Donations flood the chat as people pay to see more senseless violence occur. Without a second thought, Jungu delivers a devastating punch to the student's face. Hidden nearby, Bean records the entire brutal encounter to use as vital evidence. Shiori drives the team to a safer location, their mission finally gaining momentum. Inside the car, the trio recovers from their recent exhausting physical confrontation. Bean stares ahead blankly, haunted by the traumatic events he witnessed tonight. Ajin clenches his fist tightly, his resolve to exact revenge hardening further. Trembling with nerves, Bean frantically sends an urgent text to his allies. The message is clear. He has found Jungu and is currently following him. Meanwhile, Ajin waits at a quiet convenience store, keeping a low profile. He calmly eats his noodles, staying alert while waiting for a signal. Shiori texts him, teasing him about whether he's getting fooled by bullies. "Just wait," Ajin replies, certain that one of them will slip up soon. Shiori sends a witty reminder that plans only work until the first punch lands. Ajin smirks at his phone, feeling a rare moment of camaraderie amidst the tension. Suddenly, he senses someone following him, and his expression immediately shifts to focused alert. A muscular man tails Ajin while pretending to be occupied with a phone call. Shiori watches from her car, carefully tracking every movement from a safe distance. The stranger maintains a steady pace, trying his best not to look suspicious. He murmurs into his phone, likely reporting Ajin's exact location to his ruthless boss. Ajin plays along with the game, hiding a clever trap behind a fake smile. The stalker suddenly halts, sensing that something in the atmosphere has finally gone wrong. Ajin quickly checks his phone, knowing the time for peaceful observation is officially over. Shiori realizes the surveillance has started, her eyes widening as the screen glows brightly. She immediately springs into action, sprinting down the sidewalk to catch up with Ajin. A notification pops up on the screen, confirming Bean is successfully tailing the target. Junggu mocks the students, filming their humiliation while Bean watches from a hidden corner. The live chat explodes with excitement as viewers witness the student meet a brutal defeat. With a terrifying wide-eyed grin, Junggu revels in the chaos he has just unleashed. He stands tall in the middle of the street, boasting to his online audience. The comments flood in, with some cheering him on while others question his extreme methods. Suddenly, a warning flashes across the screen, announcing the broadcast has been officially suspended. The recording ends abruptly as the victim slumps against the wall, left in total silence. Junggu scans the growing crowd, sensing that his viral stunt is finally paying off. Bean's heart hammers against his ribs as he realizes Junggu is looking right at him. "Is that you, little rat?" Junggu sneers, catching the boy in his deadly sights. Bean freezes like a deer in headlights as the monster looms directly over him. Junggu mocks the boy's battered face, finding his visible terror incredibly entertaining to watch. The muscular stalker slips away, leaving Ajin and Shiori to wonder who sent him. They watch him disappear into a nearby building, realizing the hunt has just begun. The man enters his apartment, completely unaware that he was tracked the entire way. Shiori knocks on the door with a bright fake smile and a plan ready. She presents a dropped pack of cigarettes, using the simple bait to lure him out. The man's eyes bulge in shock as he realizes he has walked into a trap. Shiori continues her innocent act, even as the stalker lunges forward to grab her. Suddenly, Ajin strikes from the shadows, brandishing a high-voltage taser with deadly precision. The man lets out a muffled scream as the sudden electrical surge hits his system. He collapses onto the hard floor, his body going completely limp from the shock. Shiori looks down at the incapacitated target, handing the taser back to a weary Ajin. They quickly drag him inside, locking the door to ensure no one else interrupts. The apartment is a complete mess, covered in empty bottles and signs of neglect. Shiori works quickly, using heavy green tape to keep the man securely bound and silent. Ajin reaches for a nearby pot, ready to uncover whatever secrets this man is hiding. Ajin slowly turns the cold door handle, his heart pounding in his chest. His eyes widen in total disbelief as he finally witnesses the horrific scene. Shiori gasps in shock, her face pale at the sight of the victims, the sheer horror of the discovery reflected in her wide, red-tinted eyes. Several battered and starved runaway kids are huddled together in the dark room. Shiori crouches down, desperately trying to comfort a terrified, shaking young boy. Ajin looks on, realizing the depth of the evil they are actually fighting. The boy cowers in fear, his face bruised and swollen from the constant abuse. Shiori's expression turns to pure rage as she processes this unforgivable situation. Ajin reaches for the next door, determined to find every single person trapped here. Ajin kicks open the bathroom door, only to find Min-jae's mangled body lying on the floor. He roughly grabs the redhead by the collar, demanding he wake up and face reality. Min-jae wakes up screaming in absolute terror, his tough guy persona completely shattered into pieces. Ajin stares down at the broken bully, realizing the sheer extent of Junggu's cruelty. The coward trembles violently, begging for his life as he cries out in pure desperation. Suddenly, a heavy sound at the entrance shifts their attention back to the front door. The door chain rattles violently as someone from the outside tries to force their way in.